To be or not to be? That is the question. But when it comes to William Shakespeare, that is not the only question. There are very few records of Shakespeare's personal life, so there's a lot we don't know about him. We do know a few things though. For instance, did you know Shakespeare was born and died on the same day? Did you know Shakespeare's wife was named Anne Hathaway? Did you know Shakespeare's theatre, the Globe, was burned to the ground? And after that, Shakespeare went back to Stratford-upon-Avon, the city where he was born and where he also died. My name is Rodrigo Haddad. I'm a theater writer and director, and I have a channel here on Instagram called Série da Semana, where I talk about movies, TV shows, and pop culture in general. Today I'm here at Cultura Inglesa Em Casa to tell you my favorite Shakespeare adaptations to the screen. A question that is sometimes asked about Shakespeare is, did he really exist? What I mean is, could there really have been one single man who was able to write all those wonderful plays and sonnets? There are many theories about that. Some people believe that Shakespeare was just a name that a collective of writers used to sign the plays each of them wrote. Others believe that Shakespeare was a pseudonym used by some of the other great authors of the time, such as Christopher Marlowe or Ben Jonson. There are those who believe Shakespeare might have been a woman. One of the most interesting theories about Shakespeare's real identity is presented by a movie called Anônimo from 2011. If we believe what this movie tells us, Shakespeare was actually a nobleman from the court of Queen Elizabeth I named Sir Edward de Vere, who paid a mediocre actor named William Shakespeare to sign his name on the plays he wrote. That's because back then, it didn't look good for someone from the aristocracy to be involved in something as mundane as the theater. The movie is a very good thriller which, in addition to presenting us this theory about Shakespeare's identity, also uses as background the struggle for the succession of the English crown. There are more than 1,500 credits to William Shakespeare as a writer on the Internet Movie Database. That includes cinema, television, and filmed stage productions. Hamlet alone has had more than 100 different versions on screen. There are three ways to adapt a play. First, there is the straight adaptation, which basically takes the play from the stage and turns it into a movie or a TV show. It's usually very faithful to the original with only some small changes here and there. It's what Sir Laurence Olivier did in 1948. Then, there is the reimagining of a play, which takes the characters, the plots, and the dialogue and puts them in a different time and place. It's what we see here. In this Hamlet, the story takes place in New York City in the 1990s, and instead of the King of Denmark dying, it is the president of a tech company called Denmark Corporation who dies. It even has Hamlet doing the to be or not to be monologue in front of a blockbuster. And then, finally, there is the inspired by version, which is a loose adaptation taking only some aspects of the original, which is what Disney did in The Lion King. But my favorite version of Hamlet is the one directed by Sir Kenneth Branagh in 1996, which was the first time the full text of the play was done on screen. So I think you should definitely set aside 4 hours of your time to watch this masterpiece. Shakespeare wrote tragedies, comedies, and historical dramas. Most of his comedies were lighter stuff, things like A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Comedy of Errors, The Taming of the Shrew. Not all his comedies were laugh-out-loud funny though. Some of them were pretty serious. Take, for instance, The Merchant of Venice, one of my favorites. If you watch the latest movie version with Al Pacino, you might think it is a tragedy. But here's a tip if you ever wonder whether you're watching a comedy or a tragedy. In the tragedies, the title character dies in the end. Shakespeare wrote about many historical figures, mainly kings and queens from all over Europe. If you want to get to know some of these historical dramas and also learn a bit of British history, you should watch The Hollow Crown, a BBC miniseries that tells the story of 5 British kings who formed a consecutive monarchy. It's a huge production with an amazing cast of British actors, including Jeremy Irons, Patrick Stewart, Judi Dench, Tom Hiddleston, Benedict Cumberbatch, and many others. It's long, but it's definitely worth it. Trust me. Something we sometimes see in movies and TV shows are people putting up theater productions. For example, there's a teen comedy from the 90s called Get Over It, which has a group of high school kids who make a very funny musical version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. So my final recommendation is a Canadian TV show called Slings Arrows, which is about a theater company that puts up classics of the theater, including, of course, many Shakespeare plays. We see what happens when the director of the company is run over by a truck and dies, and has to be replaced by an actor who used to be in the company but left many years before after having a public meltdown on stage while playing Hamlet. And to make things worse, he starts seeing the ghost of the dead director everywhere. It's touching, it's funny, it's very well written, it has a great cast, and as a bonus, we get to see rehearsals and performances from Hamlet, Macbeth, and many other Shakespeare productions. If this plot sounds familiar to you, that's probably because you've watched the Brazilian version of the show, which Globo did a few years ago with the name Som e Fúria, which is also amazing and that I recommend too. Well, I guess that's enough Shakespeare for one day. For more recommendations, follow me here on Instagram at Série da Semana. Don't forget to check the Cultura Inglesa Instagram for more videos. Every Sunday there's a new one. And if you share this post, don't forget to use the hashtags Cultura Inglesa, Cultura Inglesa Em Casa, and stay at home. Cheers!